I was thinking about you all tonight. Some of you winding down after a long day, and a few of you, yeah, especially the parents of preschoolers, probably sitting there with that look that says, "Please, Henry, make me laugh before I collapse." I get it. Preschoolers are adorable, unpredictable, and somehow always sticky, even when they've touched nothing. You parents deserve a medal, or at least this story, because tonight, I'm telling you about the time I accidentally taught my kid the wrong words for their body parts. Yeah, that kind of parenting disaster. If you're a parent of a little one, you're already feeling that deep spiritual cringe. And if you're not, well, buckle up. You're about to watch me fumble through fatherhood, like a man armed with enthusiasm and absolutely no plan. The quiet of the night put me in one of those reflective moods. You know the kind, where you think back on your choices and go, "Oh no, I really did that." And trust me, this one became a family legend. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let me tell you how an innocent lesson turned into pure chaos. It's funny how certain memories sneak up on you. You're sitting there, winding down, letting the night get quiet, and then out of nowhere, bam, your brain hands you something you did years ago and goes, "Hey, remember this disaster? Want to relive it?" That's exactly what happened to me tonight. I think it started when I heard a neighbor's kid yelling something completely unidentifiable in the hallway. You know that preschooler tone? The one that sounds like a cross between a kazoo and a tiny, determined motivational speaker? Yeah, that one. And I thought, oh yeah, preschoolers. They don't just say words, they weaponize them. And then my memory did that little warm wobble, like it was clearing its throat. It said, "Henry, buddy, you ready to own up to this one? And because you're here, and because the night feels soft, and because you parents of little ones probably need this laugh, I figured, yeah, it's time." So let me take you back a few years, to the day a well-meaning, overconfident, utterly unprepared father decided it was time to teach my kid the proper names for their body parts. Now listen, before we go any further, if you're a parent of a preschooler, you're already feeling the tremor of fear vibrating deep in your soul. Because you know toddlers are unpredictable tiny parrots. They repeat absolutely everything at the worst possible moment. And if you're not a parent, hey, you're still going to enjoy listening to me embarrass myself. Think of this as continuing education or future birth control, whatever works for you. Anyway, it started on a lazy Saturday morning. The kind where the sunlight looks warm and gentle. The kind where the coffee tastes better for no real reason. The kind where you start believing you're the kind of parent who can handle things. I was standing in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, feeling like the king of responsible adulthood. My toddler was sitting on the floor, stacking wooden blocks, with the focus and intensity of a seasoned architect. The kid had built a tower taller than my dignity on a Monday morning. It was impressive. That's when my buddy Dave called. Now, Dave is one of those friends who means well, but unintentionally ruins your peace by reminding you of things you should probably be doing. He has 3 kids, all older, and he likes to act like he's earned a parenting PhD. You know the type, has opinions on everything, from bedtime routines to proper vegetable slicing techniques. He goes, "Henry, man, you teaching the kid proper terminology yet?" I froze. Proper terminology? For a moment I thought he meant math or space or birds or something wholesome. No, he says. I mean body parts. I choked on my coffee. Body parts? Like now? Yeah, now's the perfect age. Builds confidence, helps communication, avoids confusion. The worst part? He sounded so serious, so absolutely certain. I swear you could have put a spotlight on him, given him a TED Talk title like The Importance of Anatomical Accuracy in Toddlers. By the time he hung up, I was convinced. Henry, I told myself, it's time to step up. Time to be an educator, a guide, a champion of clarity. You know, completely delusional things. So I walked into the living room with the confidence of a man who has never once considered the consequences of his actions. My toddler looked up at me with big, curious eyes, and I thought, this is it. This will be our moment, our bonding, our educational milestone. I knelt down dramatically, like one of those wholesome movie dads you see on TV commercials, who know how to assemble furniture without swearing. And I said, "Sweetie, do you want to learn something important today?" The kid nodded. Of course they nodded. Toddlers love learning things. They have no idea what they're getting into, but they're enthusiastic about it. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "Let's talk about your body." And I swear to you, I felt like I was doing something noble, something wise, something award-worthy. You ever have those moments where you think you're about to be the hero of your own story? Yeah. This was that moment. But here's the thing. Nobody prepared me for how distracting it is to teach a toddler anything. While the toddler is, well, a toddler. The kid kept wiggling, rolling, pointing at ceiling fans, attempting to hand me entirely random objects like a sock, a block, and at one point, a plastic dinosaur missing one leg. And that's when it happened. When you mix Henry-level confidence with toddler-level chaos, you get linguistic catastrophe. I pointed to one part of their body, and in my flustered, trying to keep them still, trying to sound smart, trying to be dad of the year brain, I said the wrong word. Not even close either, not in the same neighborhood. We're talking wrong in a way that feels almost impressive, like I invented a brand new language on the spot and decided to beta test it on my own child. The moment I said it, I felt the universe hesitate. You ever feel that pause? That cosmic, "Are you sure about that, Henry?" But it was too late. The toddler's face lit up, like I had handed him the secret name of the universe. He repeated it, loudly, joyfully, repeated it like a victory chant. And here's the part where parenting should have kicked in, where Henry should have very calmly corrected the child and saved the day. But no. I froze. I stared at the kid. The kid stared back at me, with full faith and admiration, like I was the wise sage of all naming conventions. And I thought, well, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's close enough. Listener, it was not close enough. It was the opposite of close. It was so wrong it circled around and became right again, but in a deeply unhelpful way. But the toddler didn't care. Oh no, he was thrilled. He had a new word, one he believed was official. And toddlers don't let go of official things. They repeated it again and again. He marched around the living room, shouting it like a parade leader, announcing the arrival of the Queen. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the couch, trying to breathe, trying to figure out how to reverse this tiny educational disaster. And here's the funny thing about toddlers. Once they learn a word, they want to test drive it everywhere. Everywhere. The kitchen, the hallway, the balcony, the grocery store, and all I could think was, oh no, oh no, no. I have unleashed linguistic chaos upon the innocent world. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that I suddenly remembered something crucial. We had a preschool orientation coming up, where my child, my sweet, enthusiastic, vocabulary-powered child, would be interacting with teachers. Teachers who chose a career path built on communication. Teachers who would absolutely hear this word. Teachers who would absolutely know that Henry was responsible. I looked at my toddler, still marching around proudly, shouting the wrong word of destiny. And I realized there was no turning back now. I took a deep breath, sat down beside him, put my arm around his tiny shoulder as he continued his joyful chant, and I thought, well, Henry, you've done it again. You've managed to complicate something simple, in a way only you could. But here's the thing I didn't know yet. This little mistake, this tiny moment of misplaced confidence, it was only the beginning of the chaos. Because the universe wasn't done laughing at me, not even close. And preschool orientation day, oh, that was waiting like a beautifully wrapped present, full of embarrassment. But that's a story for later. For now, let me take you a little deeper into how this whole thing spiraled into a family legend I will never live down. You know, sometimes life gives you a tiny warning, a hint, a small, gentle whisper that says, hey Henry, maybe take a step back and rethink that. But toddlers don't whisper. Toddlers take whatever you've done, good or bad, care and turn the volume up to infinity. Which brings us to the next chapter of my misadventure. So there I was, sitting in the living room, like a man waiting for a bomb to go off, while my toddler marched proudly around the apartment, chanting the new body part word I had accidentally invented. He was so enthusiastic, so committed, so loud. And the worst part? The word actually sounded catchy. Catchy in the way jingles get stuck in your head, even though they make you slightly angry. I caught myself humming it under my breath at one point. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Anyway, the next morning came faster than I wanted. I woke up to the sound of my kid cheerfully repeating the word from his bedroom, like it was a national anthem. And you know how parents say toddlers forget everything? No, they forget nothing. Especially the things you wish they would forget immediately. I opened the bedroom door and there my kid was, standing on the bed, arms raised dramatically, like they were summoning ancient powers. And right on cue, they said it. The wrong word. With passion. With conviction. With that intense toddler enthusiasm that could power a small town. I tried. I swear, I really tried. I knelt down, smiled, and said, actually, sweetie, the proper word is... No, immediately rejected. Toddlers have the confidence of CEOs and the negotiation skills of tiny pirates. Once they accept something, it becomes truth. Universal truth, unshakable truth. So now I had a child running around, proudly proclaiming a brand new, wildly inaccurate term for one of their body parts. And guess what? It was breakfast time. Breakfast is supposed to be peaceful, smooth, a nice, calm start to the day, but not in my house. Not when there's a toddler with a new favorite word. I put a little bowl of cereal in front of him. He took a spoonful, paused, and then at the top of his lungs shouted the word again. I nearly dropped my coffee. You know that moment when you look at your child and think, I love you more than anything, but please, for the love of decency, stop talking? Yeah, that was the moment. And the universe? It was laughing, not even softly. Full belly, hands on knees laughing, because right then, my neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, chose to knock on my door. Now let me tell you something about Mrs. Callahan. She's sweet. She's kind. She's in her 70s. She also has hearing aids that tend to amplify certain sounds, usually the wrong ones. I opened the door with a smile, trying to look calm, normal, like the parent of a quiet, respectful child. And from behind me, echoing like a siren, the word. Loud, clear, triumphant. Mrs. Callahan blinked. Her eyebrows lifted so high they practically climbed into her hairline. "Oh my," she said. "Oh my." And I, being the composed, responsible adult that I am, panicked. "It's, a song," I blurted out. "Yes, a children's song. Very educational." She nodded slowly, like she didn't buy a single syllable of that, but wasn't about to challenge a tired father at 8 a.m. She patted my arm. "Well, Henry sounds like someone's learning a lot these days." Yes, he was. Just not the right things. Now, normally, this would have been the wake-up call I needed to correct things. But no, life had other plans, because that afternoon, my family came over. Not just my siblings, not just my parents. No, everyone. It was my niece's birthday, and the celebration had been moved to our apartment because we had more floor space and allegedly more patience with chaos. I accepted the compliment, unaware that my own chaos was waiting to burst, like confetti in a wind tunnel. Everyone arrived within minutes. Arms full of cake boxes, brightly colored bags, and the sort of energy that makes toddlers go feral. The second my toddler saw an audience, showtime. He ran straight into the living room, climbed onto a chair, and delivered a full-volume declaration of the wrong word. My entire family froze. My mom gasped like she had just witnessed a crime. My dad choked on a sip of water and started coughing. My sister looked at me very slowly, very deliberately, and mouthed, "What?" Then came the laughter. Oh, the laughter. My siblings were doubled over. My dad was wiping tears from his eyes. My mom was laughing, but also doing that thing where she tries not to laugh, because she's pretending to be mature. And me? I stood there, like a man who had just realized he was no longer in control of his destiny. My sister, between wheezes, said, "Henry, explain," immediately. So I told them the truth, the whole truth, the messy truth. How I had tried to teach the kid proper words, panicked, and accidentally said something entirely wrong. My brother clapped me on the back and said, "You had one job, man. One." Meanwhile, my toddler continued his victory chant around the room, like he was leading a parade float. It only got worse when Grandma arrived. Grandma, bless her heart, tried to pretend she didn't hear it. But toddlers have a gift. They say a word louder when they think someone missed it. So my toddler walked right up to her, put their tiny hand on her knee, and repeated the word again, softly, slowly, like a dramatic revelation. Grandma blinked, smiled politely, and then shot me a look. A look that communicated a very clear message. Correct this, or else. But I couldn't. I tried. I really tried. "Sweetie," I said for the 20th time that day, "the right word is no." Shut down instantly. You know what's humbling? Being outdebated by someone who still can't tie their own shoes. But the real chaos? The event that solidified my mistake as a family legend? Came the following morning. Preschool orientation day. Oh yes, the day of reckoning. I dressed my toddler in the cute little outfit we picked out, the one with the tiny pockets he kept trying to fill with cereal. I fixed his hair, packed his bag, and gave myself a pep talk in the bathroom mirror. Henry, I whispered to myself, today you will remain calm. You will deflect. You will distract if needed. You will not allow that word to escape the child's mouth. I should have known better. The preschool was warm and cheerful, the kind of place that smells like crayons and optimism. Parents were chatting, kids were exploring, teachers were greeting everyone with smiles. A perfect environment for disaster. We walked in. My toddler took one look at the classroom, and you could see it happen. His eyes widened, his smile spread, the energy crackled, and before I could even unhook his backpack, he shouted the wrong word. At full preschool orientation volume, every head turned. 20 parents, 4 teachers, 3 toddlers, and a goldfish in a bowl who definitely heard it too. The lead teacher blinked, smiled tightly, and said, "Oh, that's new." I wanted the floor to swallow me. Another teacher tried to help. "Oh, maybe he's saying it wrong," she said gently. "Nope." My toddler repeated it, louder, clearer than ever. And then, God help me, pointed at the body part in question. The teachers froze. The room froze. I froze. A parent coughed so hard they nearly fell off a tiny chair. I stepped forward, hands raised like I was surrendering. "I can explain," I said, and what followed was probably the most embarrassing conversation of my parenthood career. I told them everything. The phone call with Dave, the confidence, the attempted lesson, the accidental word, the parade-level chanting. The teachers tried so hard not to laugh. Their faces turned red. One had to turn around and pretend she was checking the schedule. When they finally caught their breath, the lead teacher said, "Well, Henry, at least they're enthusiastic learners." And you know what? I'll take it. I needed that win. My toddler, meanwhile, had wandered off to play with blocks, blissfully unaware of the emotional roller coaster I was on. By the time orientation ended, there was no fixing it. The word had spread. My child had taught 2 other toddlers before we even left the building, and that's when I realized the truth. This wasn't just a parenting mistake. This was a movement, a revolution, a tiny linguistic uprising led by my kid. And me? I was powerless, just a man watching his own error echo across the preschool snack table. But the funny thing, somewhere in all the chaos, I started to see the sweetness in it, the innocence, the wild, unpredictable magic of being a parent. But that part, that reflection, comes later. Right now, we still have one final chapter. How I finally came to embrace the whole ridiculous mess, and how it turned into the funniest, warmest family memory we still talk about today. You know, there's a moment in every parent's life when you realize you're no longer steering the ship. You're just holding onto the wheel, smiling politely, while the ocean does whatever it wants. That moment hit me right after the preschool incident. The teacher, Miss Caroline, was still trying to hold herself together. She had that expression people get when they're torn between maintaining professionalism and collapsing into laughter so loud it echoes across state lines. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and said, "Henry, did you, teach him those terms on purpose?" I wanted to lie. Oh, I wanted to lie so badly. I wanted to tell her it was a scientific experiment, a linguistic study, a cultural misunderstanding, a prank played by distant cousins I no longer speak to. But I took a breath and said, "I did, accidentally, and I regret it with every fiber of my being." She nodded slowly, like someone acknowledging a tragic yet preventable avalanche. Then she leaned in and whispered the quietest, most compassionate thing. "Don't worry, we've all done something like that." And that right there, that sentence saved me. Because suddenly I wasn't the clueless dad who turned anatomy into interpretive poetry. I was just a parent. Another imperfect human in the big messy club of, oh no, I really did that. The hardest part wasn't facing the teacher. No. The teacher was polite, supportive, and mercifully discreet. The real challenge was my kid. Let me tell you something about toddlers. Once they learn a word, especially a funny one, they cling to it like it's the secret password to a magical kingdom. I tried everything. I said, "No, honey, it's called this." And they said, "No, Daddy, you said it's called that." I said, "Daddy made a mistake." And they said, "Mistake? No, Daddy is smart." Which was flattering and disappointing at the same time. I even tried reteaching the correct words with puppets, with drawings, with snacks. Toddlers are surprisingly corruptible with snacks, but every time I thought we'd made progress, boom, right back to the nonsensical Henry-branded vocabulary. In the grocery store aisle, wrong words. At the park, wrong words. Talking to my neighbor, Mr. Jimmy, who is 92 and has no tolerance for nonsense. Oh, very wrong words. It got to a point where every day was a gamble, like spinning a roulette wheel. But instead of numbers, you get levels of personal embarrassment. So here our family response, a spectrum of reactions. My sister laughed so hard she wheezed. Tea actually came out of her nose. She still blames me. My mother? She said, "Henry, good parents make mistakes. You create new vocabulary." Not inaccurate. My father gave me that slow nod older men give when they see a younger man learning a painful but necessary lesson. And Dave? Oh, Dave? Remember Dave? The one who told me to teach the words? He said, and I quote, "Henry, you are the only human alive who could turn basic anatomy into an abstract art project." I'm still not sure if that was an insult or a compliment. But here's the beautiful thing. A few days later, I returned to the preschool to pick up my kid. And Miss Caroline stopped me again, this time smiling in a way that didn't involve any suppressed laughter. "Your kid is doing great," she said. We corrected the words. They caught on fast, and honestly, you brought so much joy to the staff room this week. And I swear, something warm unfolded inside me. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the feeling of being forgiven by the universe. Or maybe it was just the strange comfort of knowing my ridiculous mistake had made people smile. Later that night, after my kid fell asleep, calm, peaceful, unaware of the chaos he caused, I sat down on the sofa and really thought about the whole thing. Parenting, life, being human. It's so much less about getting things right, and so much more about showing up with love. Even if you occasionally invent body part names by accident, I realized something soft and simple. One day, my kid will forget this ever happened. But I won't. And someday, when they're grown, and we're sitting at a table with coffee and sunlight, I'll tell them this story. And we'll laugh until our ribs ache. Because the messy moments, the embarrassing ones, the disasters we swear we'll never repeat, those are the stories we look back on with the warmest hearts. Those are the stories that become family legends. So, if you're listening right now, especially you parents of little ones, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think. Your mistakes aren't failures. They're memories in progress. Warm little stories that your future self will pull out someday and say, "Ugh, yes, that was chaos, but it was our chaos." And if you're not a parent, well, I hope you still enjoyed watching me navigate life, like a man trying to assemble a bicycle with oven mitts. Either way, I'm glad you're here. I really am. You know, as I sit here with the night settling around us, I keep thinking how lucky I am that you stayed with me through another one of my questionable life decisions. If you're feeling a little lighter, a little sleepier, maybe even a tiny bit amused, then I've done my job. And hey, before you drift off completely, I'd love to hear from you. Truly, if you're a parent, or an aunt, or an uncle, or just someone who's ever taught a kid anything that later backfired in spectacular fashion, drop a little comment tomorrow when you wake up. Tell me your funniest mix-up, your most unexpected parenting moment, or even the one thing you swore you'd never tell anyone. It's our cozy little corner of the world. No judgment, just stories. Your comments always make me smile, and they help me shape the next bedtime tale we share. But for now, breathe a little deeper. Let the quiet tuck you in. Let the day finally loosen its grip. Rest well, my friend, and when morning comes, I'll be waiting to read your story too. Good night.